Okay, when we talk about equity, so it's like I said, it's about investors, while debt is about lenders. And of course, the investor needs and requires, for a direct ownership of that business. And most of the time, this is based on the valuation, of that capital, and they are given a part of that, a shareholding of the business, basically. But while for lending, it doesn't require any form of ownership. And so it's okay to say that debt seems to be cheaper than equity. Why? Because, because of that ownership structure. So you still have your ownership structure in place, however, so it makes it cheaper compared to equity. Also, equity capital is tenured. It's tenured. So it's tenured, or it's not tenured, sorry. It's not tenured, while debt has a maturity date. So for example, when it's a debt capital, there is a start date, and from that beginning, there is already an end date set in place. While for equity, yes, there might be some form of exit plan, but it's not clearly spelled out from the beginning. Basically, the guy is coming in, the investor is coming in to be a part of the business, is coming in to be a part of the show. And next difference between equity and debt is that, of course, debt from the beginning needs to be repaid, and that is going to be clearly stated. Debt has to be repaid, while equity does not have to be repaid. Is the last to be repaid. Is the last to be repaid in event of any solvency of the business. And another point is that in the place of debt, there's interest expense payable, and of course for equity there's no interest expense paid. So you're both co-owners of the business, and you run the business together, and you don't have to pay any form of interest. But in some cases, some form of dividends are paid, periodically. It's very important that we say that. Okay, next. Now, so we ask ourselves these questions. How bankable is your business? How bankable is your business? How bankable is your business? Or we can also say that is your business investment ready? How bankable is your business? Or is your business investment ready? Because I've seen that as a business owner, I'm in control of how bankable my business can be. I'm in control of how investment ready I want that venture or that business, to be. I might not be in control of the availability of the capital, either debt or equity, but I'm in control of this. And this is also very critical. This forms the art of it, because I've seen instances whereby opportunities came up, but the guy or the business was found not to be ready for that kind of investment, or for that kind of seed being injected into it. And that's why it's important that we always ensure that our businesses are bankable. And when we say bankable, we're saying how well can that business attract investors? How well can that business attract, the attention of your banker? Today we live in a society, and it's the same all over the world, whereby, you see bankers, investors chasing after some businesses, while some others are literally left, untouched. And it speaks to the place of readiness. It speaks to the place of being bankable, and how investment ready we are. And that is why we are going to be looking at how we can gauge our readiness, because it's very important that we are able to gauge our readiness as a business. And that takes us to the next one thing. So how how ready are you? How ready is the business? And to gauge your readiness this evening, for that investment that you really desire, we're going to look at your bookkeeping. So how is that bookkeeping? How tight is it? How tight is the bookkeeping, for that business? I remember sometimes ago, it was in 2018, thereabout, that I was part of a CBN committee that set up a special fund for the creative industry. And of course, this was something that the industry had always, clamored for. And thankfully it came. But to my greatest surprise, quite a number of the businesses, were found not to be ready. Were literally not just ready. So in our engagement, after the product had been developed, after a series of engagements, reviews, strategy sessions, putting heads together, with some directors in the CBN, we came up with a product and it was launched to this, and it was specific to the entertainment industry. But lo and behold, there were practitioners, there were some known names on TV, who wanted to access the funds for movie production, for asset finance, but they were found to be not ready. So you can imagine that a business, that had been around for from years, over a decade, did not even have any corporate account to support their requests. So the promoter, even as he made money, he passed everything into his personal account, basically. And of course, that would not just fly. It was just clear that these guys were not just ready for this. And that's why it always looks like the same people tend to get this intervention funds. Why? Because it's the same people, who are ready and who have been ready and who will just remain ready. So it's important that, you as a business owner, there is clear demarcation, with your spendings. Very critical, your spendings, there's clear demarcation, your expenses, your inflows, your outflows, ensure that everything is passed through your corporate account. Ensure that everything is passed through your corporate account, monitor your in and out, make everything, make it decent, make it ready, for that opportunity. And of course, the next point is the place of financial reporting. So as a business, it's important that you have your, account audited, you have your financials. Very important, you have your financials up to date, and this is just very important, so that by the time the first quarter is ending, make sure that you work with the accountants, you work with auditors to get the books ready, the books of the previous year ready, and let it be up to date. Very important. And the cost is not very important. It's not a whole lot. It's just about setting out, to do it right. And of course, there's the place of tax compliance. This is also very critical. I've heard business owners say that because of tax issues, they don't want to channel everything, all the inflows into the account. But it turns out to be, counterproductive. Why? Because when the opportunity finally comes, someone is appraising your turnover and they're judging you to say that, oh, this is below expectation, that you do not meet up to what is required. And of course, the place of clean credit reports cannot be overemphasized. It's important that your credit report is clean. It's important that there are no bad loans against you. And I even encourage business owners from time to time to check it. From time to time to check it. You don't have to wait until you want to borrow or you want to attract an investment before you check your credit reports. I remember an instance where a loan that a company had taken sometimes in 2010, was just shown and was just found in their credit report as bad. And what had happened was that the other bank, they had paid down, or maybe there was just some leftovers that were not cleared, but another bank had taken over the initial bank, the initial lender, and of course those ones had updated their records and all of that, and they just put everything into the credit bureau platform, and it showed up as a bad loan, basically. After almost after some 10 years, So that's why it's important from time to time you check these things. So now imagine if it was an investor that run a check on you and had just seen that, that would automatically have been a very, very wrong thing, basically. And of course, the next place is a place of annual returns filing. And this is very important. So whether quarterly, whether annual, it's important that this is put in place. You ensure that your annual returns are up to date, such that it's not the day of that you need it that will now begin to run everywhere to get this sorted. So file regularly, and if you also belong to some associations, ensure that you file. You're just ready. Someone said that when the student is ready, the teacher shows up, and that's really how opportunities work. Opportunities really will not announce that they are going to show up. They are coming. But it's just about us living ready and making sure that we are ready whenever it shows up. And last but not the least, on gauging your readiness is a place of setting adequate systems and structures, basically. So yes, it's a small business, but it's going to grow, it's going to scale, and it's important that you structure for growth. Everything should not evolve around the promoter. And this is even a very major factor for investors. Investors really want to see the power of the team. They really want to see how tight that team is, and that's why it's important that you have some, professionals on that team, people with experience, and set it well. And even when you have them on board, it's also important that you empower them, let them have some level of power, let them be able to run the operations while you are relieved to focus on more strategic things. Okay. So next, let's talk about the different options that are available for capital raising. So there are a number of options there. I've listed about 9 options there, that are available for that entrepreneur that wants to raise capital. And the first is what we call the FFF, and that's the place of the founders fund. So your own personal funds. So for a startup, and this is really for a startup, the business that is just started, with a new business, it's important that you have your own funds in it. At a stage, you even need your own money to get it off the ground, basically. And of course, next is to talk to family and friends. And the good thing is that these funds represent some cheap funds, basically. Why? Because these are close people around you. You can still manage them to a whole lot of, manage them well. And if you have also been someone that has invested a lot in your social capital, they will not find it so hard to help you with that initial investment. And of course, next is the place of, so the business has started, and now you need to get some supplies from someone, or it's a letter of credit or a bills for collection, and you have to import something from somewhere. This is also another very important one, and that's the place of supplier credit / trade credit. And this is just whereby a supplier advances you, some form of credit. So so against you paying immediately, you can actually enjoy some form of supply credit up to 30, 60, 90 days, depending on how you are able to negotiate. And of course, which also depends on many different other factors, basically. And that's that. We even have situations with bills for collection whereby you even pay after the goods have been supplied, after you've sold, 90 days after, bill of lading date, shipping document dates. That helps you to manage your cash flow. Remember, it's all about capital. It's all about you having, financial assets that makes the business run. So it can also be other people's money. It can be money. It can be generated from the operations of that business. And that is one thing that supplier credit helps you to do. We also call it spontaneous finance. All this just helps you to manage your cost effectively. And even if there is a cost implication, it's usually very marginal, and that helps you to manage your overheads accordingly. And next is the place of financial institutions or loans, basically. This is from banks, other financial institutions, and this is also available. This can be negotiated. Of course, this is strictly debt, and this can be negotiated. I'm sure we are all very familiar with this. It's a major option, or one of the major options of raising capital around us today. The next is sector-specific intervention funds. And from time to time, there are different intervention funds that come into the industry. And on this one, I will advise that you, as much as possible, in that business space that you play, that you also align with your association. So if there's a body, if there's an association, try your best to align with them, such that we've also seen whereby associations are able to also push and prevail on government to make intervention funds available from time to time. This is also a very viable one, because it usually comes at single digits. It's so during the pandemic, where in the heat of it last year, there was actually some form of intervention fund for the health sector, which came out at 5%. And of course, quite a number of hospitals, around that I know, got this basically, and next is the place of crowdfunding. So crowdfunding is simply raising funds, from people, many people, from a crowd, basically. And there are some businesses around that have done this well successfully, over the last, they've really done this well over the last few years. So it's also a very viable one, which I also encourage that we can look at. And next is the place of angel investors. So angel investors are individuals who also, they're not families, they're not friends, but who look at the business plan, the concept, the idea, and they decide to invest in it for a particular stake, basically. And these are individuals, these are strictly individuals, and that's the major difference between angel investors and venture capital. So for venture capital firms, these guys are complaints of firms, and they wait for that complaint to at least get to a stage of maturity. So it moves from that early stage to maturity before they invest, and of course, there's a place of private equity. And for private equity guys, they wait for the business to have stabilized well, before they invest. And and of course, they're also able to put, most of the time, they take a major chunk of that business, And last point here is the place of bonds, CPs, IPOs, and this is just in the capital market. So this is also at, of course, that's really for the very, very advanced stage, whereby you've structured well, and you really established, and it's just a need to engage that capital market. It's important that after having tried these other options, you replace that funding with this, because this is very cheap funds, basically. So your shares can be sold, your bonds can be, you can raise capital through the bond, and this can be as long as 7 to 10 years, relatively cheap, basically because of that tenor, and that helps the business to move to the next level. Okay. So here we look at the product life cycle, because it's important that we also try to match the business with the right investment, or the right capital. We match the business, because the business has different stages, and here we're looking at the 4 stages of the business, which is the introduction stage, and this is where sales are low, and of course there's high cost, there's little or no profit, but most of the time it's no profit, it's loss at this point, and of course we gravitate to that growth stage where everyone is excited. You're seeing you've touched profits, increase sales and reduce costs, and the maturity stage, which is the peak of it, basically, before it now gets to the decline stage. And of course, at the decline stage, it's either the business dies or you are able to turn it around, inject some new ideas, inject some new products, and just put another life in the business. So these are the major four stages of a business. So it's important that we now identify what kind of funding is right or adequate for each stage, and that's what the next slide speaks to. So the next slide speaks to the place of the business cycle versus the capital. So for that early stage, that introduction stage, we expect the corresponding funding is the FFF, and that's the founder, family, and friends. This is the early stage. And of course, the angel investor too also comes in here. The angel investor is that individual who wants to invest in the business for a particular stake. So this comes in at this particular stage. And of course, the place of crowdfunding too, can also work for the early stage. And of course, the next stage is the growth stage, whereby you're seeing the touching profit, things are happening, and the business is getting attractive, you're making the news. The venture capital, that's where the venture capital firms will catch their attention, and of course the banks will also come around you at this point. I will say that at the early stage, I will not encourage that you get a bank loan at that stage. Yes, it's not ideal for that stage. Why? Because you are not even making profits. So how do you want to pay back the loans? Basically, this usually is a shock killer for businesses. And at this stage, again, of course, the supplier credit comes in. And next is the maturity stage, the private equity guys here, the intervention funds. The intervention funds too, also come in to stabilize. You get cheaper funds, you get cheaper loans. Yeah. And of course, at the last stage of decline, what you require here is some form of restructuring or turnaround funding, or even expertise. So it's beyond money here. There's a space of strategy, there's a place of reviewing the entire business model, or injecting something new into the venture. Okay, so rounding up. So what I have here is just a list of some African-focused venture capitalists. So because maybe somebody is asking, so where are these guys, basically? So I've put here a list of some African-focused venture capitalists, basically, who are focused on the African continent. Some of them are from United States, and some of them are actually African VCs, and they have a lot of focus on the African country. For most of those guys that we see around in the fintech space who have been able to get some form of funding, these guys have supported them over time. So we have the TLCom Capital, down to Action. So these are some of the key African-focused venture capitalists. Yeah. I'm sure the slides will be available, so you can surely get them after now. And of course, so if you can reach out to them, their details are everywhere on the net. You can check them out, Google them, and can start a conversation from there. The truth is that they're actually looking for great ideas, great concepts, to finance. And, they can finance as low as $10,000, and of course, and as well as $10 million. So it's cut across, basically. Yeah. And also here, just also put a list together for some government-owned fund providers in Nigeria, basically, and that's not the truth. So for that SME who needs the funding, there are some government-owned fund providers who are available. And the good thing with these guys is that most of their loans are really at single digits, so 9%, in the neighborhood of 8%, and from NISAL, is doing well with the agri space. And now they've also formed the microfinance. So they are also they are across the 6 geopolitical zones, and they are really giving out loans to support businesses. And of course, DBN has done this fantastically well. They collaborated with some banks and to offer some form of lending. They're also very biased for women-owned businesses, and it's one to also consider. And of course, the Bank of Agriculture, the Bank of Industry has also done well in recent times. They've come up with different products, different loan products, for the different industries, basically. So it's something to look out for. I know they have something specifically for the creative industry. So it's something that you have to consider. Of course, same for Nexim, the Infrastructure Bank of Nigeria. From time to time, CBN also intervenes, with some funding, as I earlier mentioned. And this is something which it's important that you just look around for it and be on the lookout. And of course, there's been a whole lot of focus on agriculture, and this gave back to the Ministry of Agriculture interventions. Yeah. And next, so here we're just speaking to other forms, other options, other funding options, other guarantee arrangements that are available for businesses. We have the SMEDAN fund. The infracredit is focused on the power industry. Growing as a bias for women businesses too. CBN, the Hanko Bora scheme, which is for farmers and players in that agricultural space. And of course, the CBN Real Sector Fund, down to WAPEL grant. So many of these are available. It's for us to do some form of engagement, and we can take the discussion further. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So I'm available. I can take some questions. Yes. Thank you.
Much, bro. And thank you very, very much, Biodun, for this enlightening session. And I'm sure, okay, Olaide, I've seen you. I will call Olaide right now. But before we call Olaide to speak, I think it will be great for us to just do a quick recap. And one of the things I find quite interesting is the fact that I counted it, there are about 9 sources of capital. 9 sources. And he said something that I find extremely instrumental. For many of these capital sources, once you've got very good social capital, and I felt they need to emphasize that. Okay? Many people also get denied because they don't have social capital. And social capital is always a mixture of character, competence, and capacity. Social capital is also important, but many squander relationships, squander social capital, have interesting questions. Capital prevents us.
Hello, VA.
Sorry, you lost me. I think I had some network.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think it was good that we called that because Biodun just mentioned it in passing. But in my almost 15 years of entrepreneurship, I can boldly tell you that social capital, most times, you'll find that it's a more crucial capital that is needed even before we talk about financial capital. And it's been a bottleneck for quite a number of people. They do not know why they can't raise money. The problem is that they lack social capital. Okay, so but I think there's a question from Olaide Olawo, and I think can the back end team unmute him and let's take his question, please. We'll take Olaide's question. Can we unmute him so we can have his question?
Yeah, good evening. Thank you, Mr. Futo, and kudos to Mr. Biodun for the insight. I think apart from, I think of course, for me, I want to know. I've dropped a question in the chat, but the other 2 I have for now is I think one, because I was privileged to be part of a kind of 2-month training sponsored by Developmental Bank of Nigeria. And what we discover, after the training, they asked us to go and discuss with the commercial bank. Now, and the commercial bank facility is looking beyond 20%. Now, I want to ask, if I'm doing a business that my profit margin is between 15 and 20%, product based anyway, so what will be your counsel in terms of the finance and the fund option that I can use to take care to scale up or to improve my business? Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much for that question. Okay, if I got you well, your profit margin is about 20%, and you are thinking if you take a loan of 20, of course, that would literally erode your profit margin, basically. So what's the ideal source of capital to inject into this? Okay, I hope I got that well. Yeah. Okay, so what I would say is that, you know, it's important that we also identify the right timing. So there's the right time to take these funds. Basically, timing is also very, very important, you know, and so I will. It's important that you explore other options, you know, and yeah. So sometimes it might not be it might not just be the right step to take, you know, or maybe you might also consider, you know, other options first, then also, so that might help you to scale down. So there's also the place of combining equity and debt finance. So basically, so you have both in your business. I think it's important that you also explore that. Another very important thing, which I've also said, working with businesses, is the place of being very prudent, you know, and it also helps one to scale up accordingly. So even as you're making your returns, you know, even you know, in the years of abundance, it's important that we are very strategic, plowing back a major chunk of that profit, you know, back into the business. These things go a long way in helping you. So in this situation, what I would advise is that you scale down if you have to take that loan. So maybe instead of taking, for example, 50 million, you can scale down, you know, on that amount, take something lower, and try to explore other options, you know, for that funding. Yes, I think I'll leave it there. Well, I'm sure that VA too will have some very
thank you very much, Biodun. I think Biodun said it all. The challenge I see at times with all entrepreneurs is that we don't really know our numbers. And I tell people basically, irrespective of the business you're in, there are three critical aspects that cut across every business under the sun, and I'll recognize it very soon. There's only one that is different. There are four pillars of a business. It's human assets, it's the financials, which is your financials, your human assets, and your marketing, business or communication. The last one is the operations. Those are the four pillars of any business. No matter the business, when you break it down, operations is core, financials is the other pillar. Managing your assets, your biggest asset is your people, is the third pillar. And the fourth pillar outside of that is about communication, marketing, sales, and all that. Every CEO or business that must understand that. So let me come to that part of numbers. If you are making if you take a loan of 20%, 20% divided by 12 tells you that you are actually taking your loan at about 1.75% per month. If your cycle, your cash cycle, the time it takes you to get the goods and sell them is 3 to 4 months, that means it's costing you an average of about 8 to 10% in cost of financing, because banks will give you money over a year period. So you still have about 10 to 12% to play with, depending. I mean, you might still take it, okay? But you need to know your numbers, because all situations and circumstances differ. You need to know when you have already lost money, because the time value of money has eroded it, and when you look at how much you borrow from the bank, flat rate, the highest you can borrow from a bank can go up to 1.5%, because 1.5% a month is about 30% per annum, except it's a microfinance bank, okay? Typical banks don't do that. However, I love what Fiona shared earlier on. Where is your growth stage? I've never seen it presented that way. And Biodun, thank you for that. Where is your growth stage? And I think you need to go back to this presentation. Your growth stage, marry it with which level, which kind of loan you have. So if you are still the type that your business is still very small, typically an SME, 50 million naira and below a year, you are looking for angel investors. You are looking for crowdfunding. You are looking for one of the things I find very instrumental growing is suppliers credit. The person clearing your goods, give me 30 days credit. The person supply, you will find that that is very important than borrowing loans from the bank. So this, in my opinion, are part of the things you can look at. There's no one size fits all, but generally you have to know your numbers and you cannot delegate it to any accountant. No accountant, no financial person must explain your numbers to you much more than yourself. You have to know your numbers. Let's take Deji. Deji, can we unmute Deji and let's have Deji's question, please?
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Biodun. The insight and the way you delivered it made the session valuable and enjoyable for me. So thank you, sir. So I just have two questions. Mr. Biodun, you emphasized the importance of building structure around your business. So in my situation, I'm still at the addition stage. Before now, I was bootstrapping, I was spending my own money, but I wasn't taking care of my numbers. I wasn't writing down anything. I was just spending from my pocket. So I don't even know how much I have spent on that idea now. But I lost my job later. I got to a situation where I needed to talk to a friend. So he's bringing in money. He has started releasing that money in tranche. Maybe every month he will give me money so that I can have money to run the business. So that is the situation I am in. I don't know what will be advice for me.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Deji. Okay, so if I got your question, so at this stage, you want to be sure the valuation is your friend is asking for a stake, right? Hello, Mr. Deji. Is it giving you, is it giving you a support, or he wants a stake in the business? Just needed to clarify that. Now, if it's requesting for a stake in the business, it's important that you are able to account for what you have also put in that venture. It's very important that you account for everything, and as even including the time and all of that. You must find a way to do that. You have to, so even if you had passed some funds and time passed through your personal account, I'll advise that you still look at your bank statement. It's important that you're able to attach figures. VA talked about the place of knowing our figures, and that can't be overemphasized. So it's important that you are able to know, and estimate what the business really is worth, or is valued, basically. And that is also going to form the level of stake that your friend is going to get in that business. So this is this is really about your agreeing. So you need to know, from now, that whatsoever you give out, then it's out already, and you also don't want to shortchange yourself. So that's why it's important that you're able to identify everything you have put in. So maybe if at the end of the day you see that, oh, I've put in 8 million, and this guy is bringing 2 million, that helps you to know what value, what shareholding of the business you are going to give him, and as long as you agree, so from there you can take it further. But at this point, yes, I think it's a good one. If you need cash, we've talked about capital, it's like blood. You need that to be injected in the business, and someone is coming around. It's just important for the two of you to agree, and also seek some professional assistance, basically, to help you draft the agreement and all of that. So your documentation must be tight, very important. But get involved with a professional who is going to help you with that. But before that, it's important you also identify what you have put into it, by virtue of your resources, your time, energy, etc. Yeah, I hope that helps.
Thank you, sir. Can you share more light how I can monetize the time I have expended?
Okay,
Can
so
I put that in value, financial value, the time I
and
have
so
expended?
so it's really about estimates, basically. I get it. So it's really about estimates, and like I said, so it's about estimate. You are really going to estimate it because there's a time value of money, and there's a value you need to also work it out. You know, there's some calculations you need to even work out what your and how of your time is, basically. You know, and but you to get this right, you of course you need to talk to a professional. It's a whole lot, you know, involved in the calculations, basically. But I just wanted you to get that. Just ensure that you are also able to account for your own side well, and but more importantly, the two of you must agree, you know, on that valuation. Once that agreement is reached, then you've crossed the order.
Yeah, I mean, that basically is it. I mean, there was a business I invested into, and when the person was showing me in books, he was showing me debt and loans, different family members and his wife and all that. No documentation, no backup, no contracts, nothing. You could meet someone who overlooks, like I did, and says, okay, fine, I'll just take it on board. But most people will not accept it. You have to know your numbers. You must, when they talk about structure, I think one financial expert begins to say the first thing of structure is separate yourself from the business. That's the essence of an incorporation. Except you're an enterprise and you have a kiosk. You cannot have a business and then the payment. And I still see a lot of that from companies doing millions of, and they are putting it into their own personal account. Look, the truth is, like I said, you might think you're, shortchanging government and making some money today, but when the time for scale up comes, when the time for the opportunities come, you will be denied. A business has a life of its own. You have a life of your own. You cannot have the business funds in your own account. People can't pay you for services and pay into your personal account when you have a business name. So my own encouragement is put the structure. It's never too late to go. When they talk about structure is not to go and build a brick and mortar and take big office and partition. No, it's just the fact that we need to see what's called a data bank. How much have you made? What's your turnover? What's your expense? Document everything very well. It becomes easy for people to help, to assist, for you to scale up, to attract investment. But because a lot of us cannot separate, whether for ego, whether for accountability issue, whether because I'm trying to understand, I don't know the reason, you just find out that you should change yourself and shoot yourself in the leg and you still small forever. And that's why a lot of people cannot, even when it comes to the issue of social capital, you are talking to someone and he wants to give you some funds, I send it to my personal account, is a red flag. Big red flag. So, I mean, for you, the deed has been done. The problem is for her, we will tell you to go and say no more, but you need to be able to sit with your friend, persuade your friend, see how best you can capture that, get a professional to sit with you, maybe a Biodun after this call, although you pay for it because I know it's not a very cheap resource. It's a very expensive consultant. Sit with him, let him see how they can look at your man hours, what you've done, the valuation of the idea. An idea in itself has a value in the valuation process. Let them help you and then put on the table so that you don't keep taking money, unaccounted for, unexplained, there's no paper. If you guys are friends and you trust yourself, you should sign a contract. I get amused when people get offended that, don't you trust me? When I lend people money, I ask for positive check. Few of them that tell me they can't give, what's wrong with you? I tell them to get out of my office. If we're friends, we should trust each other enough to be able to sign the paper. Except you have an ulterior motive or something. Why can't you give me a positive check? Why can't you sign a paper? If you trust and respect each other enough. Except you have an intention, an ulterior motive. I mean, why can't? So make sure you stop this process now. Sit down before there's calamity in the future, and you guys can really resolve it. Trust me, I smell danger at the end where you do paddy to run the business. When real money comes in, then you begin to chase each other around. Okay. So I mean that's just my input. Let's check the chat box if there are any questions. Okay, yeah. I mean, it's expensive, but if you post your help and your questions on the Techbiz platform, Biodun is there. If you're on the Techbiz platform, you will not be expensive anymore. But if you are not a Techbiz platform person and you approach Biodun directly, I can tell you 20 years experience in the finance industry is a very expensive consultant. except you belong to the Techbiz family and you're on our Instagram page, okay? What's this? Ikeja District Society of CITN. Please, please, I need to record a presentation. So yes, I can tell you that the recording of this presentation you will find by 12 noon tomorrow. You will find on our platform, www.equicenter.com/webinar. You'll find this is a 60-second webinar. You will find all of it there, and feel free to go through to interact, to see all the questions. Very simple and concise. It makes you understand the quality of consultant that he is. You can see where you are. You can place yourself, nothing verbose, nothing over your heads. And if you have problems or questions, come to the Techbiz platform on Telegram. Look for Biodun. I can boldly tell you he is there. Direct your question to him. He will help you out. Approach him through his Facebook page or Yahoo, and you'll find out he's a very expensive consultant. Okay? Any other operating recordings will be there. They've dropped it there. I just want to find out if there's any other question from anyone. This is the time in which we need to understand the rules of money. He said something I also feel I want to shed some light on, and I find that very critical as we set to round up in another 1 minute. Entrepreneurs, try to separate your funds and the funds you keep in. He said it casually. It passed, he said it passingly as he moved on. But many of these things are critical. There's hardly any time you want to do something from the bank or anybody, and they give you everything. I've had a couple of people approach me and they say they want to pay school fees. I say, how much do you have? They say, nothing, I walk away. Oh, you want to pay for house rent? How much do you have? You have nothing, I walk away. You have this idea, how much do you have? Nothing. You want? Because when you don't have a skin in the game, is the rule. And of course, our consultant can tell me if I'm right or wrong. If you don't have a skin in the game, nobody wants to lend to you. Make sure when you are making small money, you put something away. Don't use all the money you made to go and buy a Tokumbo SUV because you want to show to people that you have blown or you have arrived or you want to grandstand. It's not needed. When your time comes, you don't need to announce yourself, except it's not your time. If it's your time, people will report you how you get in there. All those Tokumbo SUVs that will break down on third mainland and stress and frustrate you. Live very modest. Save a lot for the rainy day that can allow you leverage. No institution borrows you money 100%. You need to have equity contribution. When you have not taken time to put away things, another pandemic comes and all that, many of the organizations get wiped off because they have not sold for a time like this. And what is everybody looking for? You must have a skin in the game. If you have 20%, you don't want us to lose it. But if you have no money, if it's not working, you walk away. So Biodun also mentioned that clearly, in passing rather, but I felt it's also something we should call out. Ensure you have a reserve fund for your business. Oh, the money is not enough. It can never be enough. Ask anybody, including the richest man in Africa. He doesn't have enough. And I've worked through it in the last 15 years. You can never have enough. Have a principle and a policy. A particular percentage of your profit stays away as sinking fund for your business so that you can leverage that. And I can assure you, these are part of the structure. When people say structure, they think it's something they need to go and read from heaven. These are part of the structures and part of the accountabilities and data sets that people look for when they want to help you accelerate. You come to Eco Innovation Center and we find out that all you have is idea. Ideas are cheap, trust me. And God gives 1 million people the same idea, no matter what the idea is. But you need to have demonstrated what we also would call structure. You have an MVP, you put in some time, we can see your data, we can see your customers. There are a couple of things we've seen. If you don't have those things, those are the tiny things called structure, nobody will support you and you cannot attract capital. And I think Biodun, of course, has said it all. I just felt a few of those points, we should be able to call them out. I'm checking the chat bot. I've not seen any question. And I noticed that I'm just 1 minute over the hour. Biodun is still here. If there's no question, I think we will begin to wind down now. And on that note, I can boldly tell Biodun that thank you so much. Your years of experience in the finance industry you have brought to bear. I can boldly tell you I've not seen a presentation so simplified, yet so pregnant in a long while. So simplified, yet so pregnant. And I can boldly say, and yet very easy to apply. Thank you for doing justice to this. We're proud of the kind of of consultants that grace this platform, and you again has raised the ante and raised the bar. And we want to say a big thank you on behalf of myself and everyone on the Techbiz platform and part of the production team at backend, and to everybody also who is on the platform, is to say thank you again for keeping faith with us across all the platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, the YouTube, and of course here on the Zoom, where myself and the speaker or facilitator is always seated. We want to say thank you for joining us. This is Eco Innovation Center, and this is Techbiz, one of the platforms where Eco Innovation Center strives to fulfill its mandate of equipping and holding startups in the ecosystem and helping them achieve scale and commercialization. Techbiz is a platform where we engage 1 hour every Thursday, every week, and we bring in thought leaders, opinion shapers, and experts to share with us from the knowledge that they have on different subject matters where they think we can better improve to achieve the mandate of scaling up and commercialization. And that's what we've been able to do again through Techbiz. Thank you very much. It's brought to you by Techbiz. This is, like I said, a platform of Eco Innovation Center located in 50 Awolowo Road, Ikoyi, Lagos. And I remain your host for today, Victor Bengafolabi, the founder of Eco Innovation Center. And I look forward to hosting every one of you again next week on the 63rd episode of Techbiz. And what are we likely to talk about next week? And I think it's just important that we look at what next week will be again. And for next week, we're having another facilitator, Mark Onuchi. He will be talking to us also around funding. So I think we can book a date again the next week, Thursday, where, we cannot be tired of hearing how to raise funds, how to get better. He'll be speaking from a policy point of view, what we can do, and I look forward to hosting every one of you. Thank you very much, and you have a fabulous weekend starting for tomorrow. Thank you very much, Biodun. Thank you, everyone. Have a great.
Thank you, VA. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.